Hello, guys, and welcome to another video from Between the Ropes TV. Tonight, myself and Josh, we're going to go through the massive Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. fight card that's happening this Saturday in Manchester. Josh, this is a huge card, isn't it?
It is a big card. It is a big card, mate, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, pretty much so. Start by running through the fights, and we'll look at Richard Riakpo against the Polish Tiktuf Glowacki. This is a tough ask. Glowacki's got a very, very good record. He's only lost against the best in the cruiserweight division. Josh, how do you see this fight going?
Do you know, I'll be honest, and I think you're going to get sick of me because I think it's going to be a little bit of a theme that's going to end up occurring tonight. But I'm a little bit on the fence. It's a great step up, and I think massive hats off to Richard Riakpo for actually taking this fight. He's well ranked now with governing bodies. I don't think he could have been blamed too much for sitting back a little bit and waiting for that world title shot. But he's gone for it. He's going for the fight with Glowacki. And this is going to be a real test, isn't it? And in all fairness to, we talked about with Chris Smith in December about how this could be the last one before a world title shot. But in all fairness to Richard Riakpo, if he comes through this, like he's definitely got the potential to do with a good performance, if we're being brutal, we've seen people fight for world titles and fight lesser fighters than Glowacki. So it'd be a massive, massive check in the box for him.
The thing is, though, Josh, I mean, to come through and to solidify yourself as a valid contender for a world title, you have to come through people like Glowacki, don't you? I mean, the guy's, he's 35 years old, but that's not ancient in the heavier weight classes, is it? I mean, we're talking about somebody that's only lost to the likes of Usyk, Lawrence Okoli, and Maurice Bradis. So do you think Glowacki is going to be, at this moment in time, the best yardstick to see whether Riakpo's power can really carry itself to world level?
I think he is, short of, facing the world champions. And let's be fair, Glowacki, he's a tough night's work for anybody. So outside the world champions, I think he's probably, for me, the best cruiserweight about at the minute. There's a few on the way up, and we've got a few in Britain that obviously we've talked about previously, Riakpo included, we're excited about. But I think this is a brilliant fight. And in all fairness, I just want to give a little quick shout out to Sky and Boxer, because for me, this is big enough to headline its own card. And I know we'll get to the pay-per-view conversation, but fair play to them for putting this on this card.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a really interesting fight. And I get your point because let's just see at the Ali Pali, that fight could headline that. So I definitely see where you're coming from. But moving up the card as well, you've got a really intriguing class between Joseph Parker and a friend of the show, Jack Massey. Jack stepping up from cruiserweight to heavyweight, former IBO cruiserweight champion. How do you think he fares in this fight? Because really, you could see it as not necessarily a comeback fight for Joe Parker, but it's definitely a fight he's taken to get himself back into the mix. How does Jack fare at heavyweight?
It's tough. And do you know what? Before we actually go into anything to do with this fight, I think, and I'm not biased because he's been on with us and we've exchanged messages or whatever previously. However, the ball's on Jack Massey to go into heavyweight and immediately get him with Joe Parker, ex-world champion. You have to take your hat off to him. I do think it's going to be a tough fight. Joseph Parker's no mug, and let's not get caught up in the Joe Joyce defeat last time out, because yes, Joe Joyce beat him soundly. However, that's a loss that could age very well. Say Joe Joyce Tyson Fury gets made, and Joe Joyce steamrolled Fury. All of a sudden, that loss, there's absolutely no shame in that loss at all. So, but I think he's going to have it all to do. And I spoke a lot before the Joe Joyce fight about the improvements that Parker's made under Andy Lee, and I do think, sadly,
which you've posted about on the socials as well.
I have, yes, today. I'd love to back a Jack Massey win here, but for me, I think he's a tough lad. I think it's no coincidence that the other domestic cruiserweights. You haven't heard any of them shout his name. And, you know, when he had the IBO championship, although it's a smaller piece of the puzzle, it's still a piece of the puzzle. And no one was calling his name. And I think that speaks volumes itself. But I think it's just going to be too much for him. I think if he could have had a tune-up fight at heavyweight, we might be looking at a different outcome. But straight in at the deep end, respect to him. But I think Parker's going to have just enough to come through this one. But I could see it going the distance and Parker winning on points.
Fair one. I do think it's a case of probably Jack has bitten off a little bit more than he can chew. But you never know, with a good performance, he could come back down to cruiserweight and be back in that mix all of a sudden. You know how it is, Josh. Sometimes when you put up a valiant effort in defeat, all of a sudden everyone wants a piece of that pie. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that fight pans out. I'm guessing you're going for a Parker points win on that one.
Parker points win on that one, yeah.
Then you've got a real big domestic clash, haven't you, at welterweight between Echo Esserman from Nottingham, Chris Kongo from London, for the British Commonwealth and IBF European welterweight titles on the line. This is a mouth-watering clash again, and boxers have done really well to get this matchup on the card. Chris Kongo, he's only had that defeat, hasn't he, against Mickinson. He's going to want to prove that was a one-off and be back in that mix at the top level. Be wanting to get that rematch. Echo Osman's flown under the radar. He's got a good resume. How do you see this one panning out, Josh?
Again, as I said, you're probably going to get frustrated because this is one I'm really on the fence on. Esserman, for me, he's definitely, he's got a solid resume. He's on the rise for sure. And he's a talented fighter. There's no doubt about that. But for me, this is his first real acid test. This is the first time I've seen him matched with someone that I'm thinking this could get a bit sticky at times because Chris Kongo's no mug, and I know he had that loss to McKinson, which sort of derailed him a little bit. However, McKinson gave Ortiz rounds, and I know he lost, but again, we're talking about losses where there's absolutely no shame. And again, I'd also like to say hats off to both these guys because this is a risky fight for both at this point of their careers. So massive respect to them for getting it on, and again to Boxer, as you said. But I do ultimately think Kongo's going to cause Esserman problems, but I think Esserman's going to sort of solve the puzzle and he'll come through by the skin of his teeth. I'll give you a more accurate prediction. I think it'll end up being a split decision for Esserman.
Right. Okay. I mean, just when you were on about Esserman's wins there in Kongo being his first sort of like acid test. I mean, he did beat Chris Jenkins, who's also been on the channel. That was a very, very good performance as well.
Excellent performance. I'm taking nothing away from Chris Jenkins, but I did think at that point, Esserman was on the rise. Jenkins is, definitely peaked, possibly even starting to decline. So I did pick Esserman for that fight quite comfortably. This is the first fight where I'm thinking there's going to be some hairy moments. He's going to have to come through adversity. Yeah.
I've got to go for Chris Kongo on this one. I think Chris Kongo is going to have the bit between his teeth. He did get outboxed by Michael Mickinson, and I think at that point Mickinson was very underrated because people just looked at his resume and realised that he had only had the 2 stoppages. But in terms of his boxing skill, Mickinson's right up there. Kongo was a great amateur. Esserman wasn't a bad amateur either. I just think Kongo just edges it for me on points. So I think that's what we're going to have our first disagreement of the night. But then moving on again, obviously, you've got to look at the main fight there. Liam Smith, Chris Eubank Jr. You've hit the nail on the head already, Josh, talking about how tight these fights are. We're not used to seeing that, are we, Josh? We've complained about how some cards are being left hand heavy, but this one, you come into it, they're pretty much equal, aren't they, Josh? So how do you separate them?
I don't know if you can, mate. I was about to ask you for some tweezers to start picking the splinters out because, I know we've said this off camera in our WhatsApp chat, and we've gone back and forth. And originally, I was quite confident about a Eubank win. Then the more I thought about it, I thought, oh, hang on a minute, I'm leaning towards Smith. Now, as fight weeks progressed, and obviously watching the shouldering content, and again, another great shout out to Boxer and Sky. There's been, with the behind the scenes show that they've done on YouTube, and the gloves are off, which obviously we usually get. There's been some great content around this fight. I'm firmly on the fence, mate. Honestly, yesterday I was still thinking Smith. I've woke up today and I'm thinking Eubank's going to pull it off. The firm prediction I will make, I suppose I have got to pick a winner for the purpose of the video, but the firm prediction I do think it goes to points either way, because let's not forget Eubank is a fighter in terms of he likes to be in the pocket. We're used to seeing volume shots, which is for me still where he's had his most success. Obviously, the partnership with Roy Jones Jr. came in. He's shown little bits that he can box a little bit. But let's not forget, he's been out the ring a year now. And obviously, that win over Leighton Williams, I stand by it, was a bizarre win because he should have got him out of there. And I know he said afterwards, no, I wanted to punish him and, the usual sort of jargon that we expect. However, he should have got him out of there. And, Roy Jones in the shouldering TV shows has said this week that he's expecting the stoppage from him. So it will be very interesting to see the approach that Eubank takes. I do think the Roy Jones element has added a feather to the bow, if you like, of Eubank. However, I don't agree with what Eubank's been saying, how he can either beat Liam Smith by boxing or in a fight. Because let's not forget, Liam Smith's very good in the pocket too. And I do think his boxing ability is underrated. But for me, where Liam Smith, and I know there's been a lot of talk about it, the area Liam Smith needs to focus on is the body shots, because we know Liam Smith's got a good body shot on him. And I think that's the way you're going to test Eubank, because let's be fair, Eubank's chin is unbelievable. So I'd be surprised if Smith coming up from 154 can cause Eubank problems to the head. So he's got to go to the body. That is his chance of success. But I'll give a prediction. Right now, I'm going Chris Eubank Jr. on points.
Right. Interesting points that you've made there. I think I'm going to go for Liam Smith on this one. Like you, I've been tossing and turning all night about it. I can't remember the last time I've done that with a fight. I've always managed to pick a winner. May not have been a winner on the night, but I've always managed to pick a winner. This one's been the most 50-50 fight I've seen in a while, and that's why I love this card. I just think that this fight literally is going to be fought short and mid-range, and I think when you look at it, Liam Smith's, for me, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the best inside fighter in British boxing. I also think as well, you made a good point about Roy Jones, but I also think Chris Eubank Jr. at some point is going to revert the type in that fight. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that comes to fruition. But there's some other prospects on the card that we've got to look out for as well, isn't there, Josh? There's Scott Forrest. He's looking promising, but also Fraser Clark in an interesting fight. There's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, Josh, about Fraser Clark perhaps not getting tough enough opponents, and it's really hard to match him. He's up against a kid that's 7-6, Spinoza. I mean, Fraser Clark, is this the year where he gets perhaps in English, maybe a British at the end of the year?
It's got to be. With his age, well past the wrong side of 30 now. What is he, 31, coming 32 this year? For me, if he's not at British level at the end of this year, he runs the risk of turning into a David Price. And I don't mean in terms of the chin, just in terms of like untapped potential that we never quite saw.
Yeah, and I guess what you mean by that, because Dave Price did have a couple of big fights, but they were a bit later on. But Fraser Clark, you talk about his age as a heavyweight. I don't think that's that old, especially when you look at the amateur career that he's had. I think actually you can look at it as a positive, and he can actually be fast tracked. So I'm hoping this year, he really potentially, even after this fight, you look at him and think he's ready for the English. But we'll have to see how he performs on Saturday night. Well, that's all from us, guys. You've heard what Josh has had to say with his breakdowns. Yeah, I've given my opinions as well. If you agree with us, let us know in the comment section. If you don't, you tell us who you think will be winning on Saturday night and who'll be losing. Stay tuned, guys, because we've got plenty more videos to come. Take care. See you later.